The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Courts are dismissing these cases with alarming speed. If you're the Trump campaign, some of these cases are getting dismissed within 48, 72 hours of being filed. And by the way, that is really rare to see. And beyond that, Jim, we're starting to see the Trump campaign and its surrogates dismiss their own lawsuits. We've now seen one lawsuit withdrawn. We saw another appeal withdrawn just the other day. That, I think, is a warning sign. You don't see that very often. When the Trump campaign is pulling back its own lawsuits, I think that's a flashing red light that they're in trouble.
Yes, I think it's a flashing red light that they are in trouble. And so when they're in trouble, what do? Hey, let's cheat. You know, this is so amazing. I mean, who cheats? Who cheats at elections? Let's see. Tom Hartman has a decent article today in Raw Story about who cheats in elections. You know, how many jelly beans are in the jar? How many? How many bubbles are in a bar of soap, right? And they called those literacy tests. Oh, my God. Now, you got 11-hour lines in Georgia, which, you know, I will never let you forget because we have to have another runoff January 5th, right? And so there's going to be an election on January 5th in the middle of the winter surge of COVID. All right. So who was responsible for running an election in Georgia? Why, it was the Georgia Secretary of State, Mr. Raffensperger. It was the governor of Georgia, Mr. Kemp. Okay? So who was responsible for 11-hour lines to try and deter or suppress or depress the turnout in this here election? And why in Georgia do they want to depress the turnout? Why? It's a red state, isn't it? It's a red state. Why would they not want their voters to vote? Because they knew that a 10-year project to get out the vote was about to come to fruition, and they knew it ever since Stacey Abrams lost by just a few tenths of a point to Mr. Kemp, okay? And she started a fair fight. And so you see all kinds of voter suppression, and it's always conducted by the Republicans, and that is why the Voting Rights Act needs to be reinstated, like forthwith. But that said, now that Georgia has engaged in an audit, a hand count, and they see that every single lawsuit that they've brought has been either lost, dismissed, or their own lawyers for the Trump campaign have withdrawn because they don't feel like getting sanctioned by the court, and they will if they lie or if they present witnesses who they know will lie. Then those lawyers, and this is what I was telling you right at the beginning, that there were law firms that were having these big meetings about, hey, how far can we actually go with these false claims? Because we'll get sanctioned by the court. We won't be able to, ever be lawyers again. Maybe we'll lose our licenses, right? And I was telling you about these white shoe law firms like Porter Wright. Okay, so now I have to tell you, 9 cases were dropped on Friday. 9 cases were dropped on Friday. Also on Friday, 6 cases were lost. 6 cases were lost in 2 counties in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, where they seek to stop the certification. Okay, they lost. And today in Pennsylvania, there is one case scheduled today about whether or not the Trump campaign's case there should be dismissed. It may have been decided by now. I don't know. I have to check. But that's it. They brought 18 cases and none of them. So now what do they want to do? Now you have a South Carolina senator, or a parasite, named Lindsey Graham, South Carolina senator, calling Georgia, what? Calling Georgia's Secretary of State, who has played along for long enough. And Lindsey Graham from South Carolina is asking the Secretary of State in another state, in Georgia, to throw out mail-in ballots in counties, whole counties, where maybe there was 1 or 2 ballots that Lindsey assumes wrongly that they couldn't verify a signature. That is lawlessness. That's coercion. That is unbelievable. And, you know, Lindsey Graham sits on the Judiciary Committee, the all-important Senate Judiciary Committee, who vets judges for confirmation purposes. So maybe all those judges that Lindsey Graham put on the courts better start asking themselves, what are we going to do about Lindsey Graham? This is an amazing story, all right? I could not, for the life of me, I swear to God, I can't even believe it. And the Secretary of State in Georgia, Mr. Raffensperger, is actually his family. He and his wife have received death threats, and he provided a couple of them to the press to read. The Hill printed, "You better not botch this recount. Your life depends on it." He told this to the Washington Post, and he produced the actual threat. This is sick.
The nicest thing that can be said about the Mitch McConnells of the world, for instance, is that they are just letting him have his tantrum and hoping it all goes away. That's the best, the very best, most charitable thing you can say about them. We have evidence tonight that that is not what is happening, that they are actually collaborating with Donald Trump in attempting to overthrow the results of a free and fair election. Because today, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, told the Washington Post he has come under increasing pressure from Republicans, including Senator Lindsey Graham, to throw away legal ballots.
What?
I'll quote. Graham asked whether Raffensperger had the power to toss all mail ballots in counties found to have higher rates of non-matching signatures, Raffensperger said he was stunned that Graham appeared to suggest that he find a way to toss legally cast ballots. Absent court intervention, Raffensperger doesn't have the power to do what Graham suggested as counties administer elections in Georgia. It sure looked like he was wanting to go down that road, he said. The Republican Secretary of State in Georgia says that South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee,
oh my God,
pressured him to dump legally cast ballots in a state where Donald Trump is losing by a relatively narrow margin. Now, Graham told a Wall Street Journal reporter tonight, quote, "That's ridiculous. What I'm trying to find out was, how do you verify signatures from mail-in ballots in these states? I thought it was a good conversation. I'm surprised to hear him characterize it that way." Okay, but what on earth was the senator from South Carolina and the chair of the Judiciary Committee doing talking to a state election official in Georgia amidst a presidential recount?
What is South Carolina's senator doing talking to Georgia's Secretary of State in the first place? In the second place, does Lindsey Graham think he's bulletproof because he is the one that confirmed or helped confirm these judges, and so that if these judges ever have to sit in judgment of Lindsey Graham, some favor would be exchanged? This is craziness. This is absolute mass madness. Now, of course, Lindsey Graham is denying it, as you heard there, saying, oh, well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I just wanted to know, how do you verify signatures? How do you do it? Well, the Secretary of State in Georgia, Raffensperger, told Lindsey Graham how they verify signatures. He actually told him. Not only do they verify signatures, but they also have photographs of the voters' driver's licenses, so they can verify their identity. There are multiple ways to verify that a voter is that voter, and the Secretary of State of Georgia has been doing that, and he is a freaking Republican. And you know what else is really weird? Doug Collins was on the ballot against, he was running for the Senate seat against Loeffler, and he lost. He's not challenging the results in Georgia. He's heading up the recount in Georgia. What?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
according to the Washington Post, that he was surprised when you asked him if he has any power to throw out all mail-in ballots.
I never said that. I said, do you have power as Secretary of State to require bipartisan verification of a signature? Because right now they don't. What I want to see happen all over the country, if we're going to use mail-in voting to affect federal elections, is that when it comes to verifying signature, that you have a process that's bipartisan, where both sides can look at the signature. If there's a dispute about whether or not you think it's valid, you put it in some kind of appeal system.
He's full of crap. Number one, a South Carolina senator has no business inserting himself into a Georgia election. Number two, Doug Collins, the Republican, the crazy Republican from the House, was running for the Senate. He was on the ballot, okay? He hasn't contested his election, which he lost to Kelly Loeffler, you know, and he conceded on election night. And now he's the one that's saying Raffensperger ought to resign without contesting his own election, which is just bizarro world. And number three, they do verify signatures in Georgia.
Well, he asked if the ballots could be matched back to the voters, and then I got the sense it implied that then you could throw those out. And he really would look at the counties with the highest frequent error of signatures. So that's the impression that I got. But you know, we've got signature match in place. We have signature match when you request the ballot, absentee ballot, and then we have signature match when it comes in. And then with our new online absentee ballot portal, that has photo ID. And so we feel very confident that the election officials have done their job. And that's what they're charged to do, is do their job and make sure the signatures match.
I just want to be clear on this, Mr. Secretary. You say Senator Graham wanted you to find ways to get rid of legally cast ballots because CNN asked him about these allegations. He denied them. He says that's ridiculous. His words, that's ridiculous.
Well, it's just an implication that look hard and see how many ballots you could throw out. And I think that they were looking at that as part of a court case. And one actually was subsequently filed, wasn't it?
Oh! Yeah, one of them was subsequently filed, wasn't it? Yes, and it was thrown out. But here is the process for Georgia, okay, for signatures. They verify your signature when you request your ballot. They verify your signature when the ballot comes in. If there's a question about the signature at the point of tabulation, they have your driver's license. They have the photo ID that you also use to vote in Georgia, and they can verify that you are indeed the voter. Oh, Lindsey, I was just asking, you know, how do you verify signatures? It's all I was doing. It's all, you know, this is bull crap. All you need to know is, does Donald Trump want it done? And then you'll know what Lindsey Graham asked him to do. And it's really creepy because Lindsey Graham is by nature a parasite. So wouldn't Lindsey see the writing on the wall at this point and understand that he now has to suck onto Biden and the Biden administration? Wouldn't he realize now the game is over? Biden has won. No matter what happens in Georgia, which Biden won, Biden has won. He has 306 electoral votes, and if you take Georgia out of it, he still has more than, he's got 290. What the hell is Lindsey up to here? And why would a parasite whose natural inclination when the host dies is to find another host to bloodsuck off of, why is he still on Team Trump when it's obvious that there is no path for Donald Trump to win? This brings a question to my mind, and it's just a question, but I want it answered, just like he wants to know, well, how does Georgia verify? Well, now you know how Georgia verifies. You request your ballot, they verify your signature. You cast your ballot, they verify your signature. If there's a question about your signature, they compare it to your photo ID to make sure you are that voter, right? So we know the answer to that question. The question I now want answered is, what does Donald Trump have on Lindsey Graham? See, because Lindsey Graham knows what the result of this election is, just like we all know. So why is he still willing to risk his law license, his position as chairman of the Judiciary Committee? Why is he willing to risk, everything that I would like to see his election reviewed in South Carolina, personally. But I would also like to know what it is that Lindsey Graham is so afraid of having made public about him. This is just the most mind-blowing thing. There wasn't, and you know, with all these freaking lawsuits, I got to tell you, all these lawsuits, I think they brought 18 total. So 9 cases were dropped on Friday. 6 cases were lost on Friday, so that's 15. There's 1 case that's alive today in Pennsylvania. I don't think anything will happen. Nevada was thrown out. In fact, in Nevada, the judge actually asked, at what point does this become ridiculous? So that one's gone. So there's like nothing left in the pipeline. And Donald Trump is now saying, I just handed all the lawsuits, there aren't any, over to Rudy Giuliani because Porter Wright, this white shoe law firm in Ohio, withdrew their lawsuit. And the lawyers are asking to have their names taken off of the remaining case. 3 lawyers at this one law firm in Ohio for a lawsuit in Pennsylvania. They said, we want to withdraw as attorneys. We want to take our names off these cases. So it's done, okay? It's absolutely done. But there was one county in Georgia where there actually could have been a case, but they missed it completely. Know why? Know why, everybody? It was a red county. They weren't looking at red counties. They were looking at black counties. Let's just say what it is. They were looking at Atlanta and the suburbs of Atlanta. They weren't looking at this one county where there really was a case that they could have made. It's been attended to. It's been righted. There was a quick and easy remedy. And the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, actually did what he needed to do to make it right. But there was a county in Georgia where a clerk in the county didn't upload his tabulation. He scanned the ballots, paper, you know, the ballots are paper, okay? The ballots that they create in Georgia create paper, and then the paper in a hand recount is scanned and then tabulated, and the number is uploaded to the state. Well, there was one county supervisor that counted, tabulated, but didn't upload the data. 2,600 votes were in play. 1,800 of those 26 went to Trump. 800 and change went to Biden. It still doesn't put Trump ahead, but that county was a county where they could have actually moved for justice to be done, but they didn't because it was a Republican county. That ought to tell you everything.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The president, as you well know, has attacked you personally. He's calling the Georgia recount, and you're in charge of that. He says it's a scam, a waste of time. You're the man in charge of that recount. Are those words you'd use to describe it? How's it going, the recount?
Well, what we decided to do is 100% risk limit audit. And we decided also to, as part of that, to do 100% manual retally. So we are, in effect, hand recounting all those ballots. And so some counties are coming with 0 changes. And yet today in Floyd County, we found about nearly 3,000 votes, about 800 plus for President Trump. And that's why you do an audit, to make sure that every vote is accurately counted. That was a county election error. It wasn't the machine error, but still, that's why you do an audit. It's just like why accountants come in and do audited financials at the end of the day. We want to make sure this vote is very accurate. We understand the national importance of this. And we're in the process of doing it. The counties will be done by the 18th, and we will certify this by the 20th.
Those uncounted ballots in Floyd County, what, about 2,600, we're told, and about 800, as you point out, were for President Trump. Was that an isolated incident? Are you sure that's not going on anywhere else?
Well, that's why you do county by county, and that's why you do an audit. And that's really, we want to be very thorough and make sure that we capture every single ballot, paper ballot that was cast. The paper ballot is the official ballot, and that's why we did this audit. And the error was found, and it was added to the totals, and that's a good thing.
Are you sure that? Well, let me just rephrase the question. How did that happen?
The counties just didn't upload one of the files. It was just an error on their part. It was scanned properly. It was tabulated properly, but then that total was not added up to the county totals. So we've talked to the county election director already. In fact, one of our senior members of our team has asked for his resignation because it's a big error. Right. That's something that it's really it's rudimentary. It's not something that shouldn't happen, but it did. And but we're moving on, and we'll be doing this for 159 counties. Many of the counties are done, but that's why you do an audit. You want to make sure you catch any of these kind of errors, and you make sure that you can really verify the count that you have.
So there was a county where they could have brought litigation. There was a county that made a mistake, and it was a big mistake. It was a mistake of 2,600 votes that were not uploaded to the total. But they didn't look there. No, they didn't look in Floyd County because Floyd County is a red county. No, they only looked in Atlanta, and they only looked in Gwinnett County. They only looked at, the counties where, let's say black people vote. Idiots. So here's the story in Floyd County. Okay, there were 2,600 new votes that were not uploaded. There were 1,643 in that batch for Donald Trump. There were 865 for Joe Biden, 800 net votes for Donald Trump. Margin of difference between Biden and Trump in Georgia, 14,000. Changed nothing. But, they could have, succeeded in court there. They could have made a big story out of that. They could have somehow said, oh, my God, there are people there that aren't tabulated. They're not uploading the tabulated votes. So now the ballots have been rescanned and tabulated and uploaded. And here we are. We got every single vote counted in Georgia properly. God, they're so stupid. They really are. They're just... and it's over. It's freaking over. And we got 64 more days of this kind of chaos staring us in the face. 64 more freaking days. But these lawsuits are just about done. In fact, here's the update on the one Pennsylvania case in federal court today. The question is whether or not to dismiss. Okay, that's the question. And apparently, Giuliani is leading this court case. There were 4,000 reporters, I'm guessing, listening on the line, trying to, get the info for us. 4,000. And according to the reporters who are talking about it, who were on the line, the phone lines had problems. And during the argument, all the phones dropped off. And so they recessed. And now everybody's waiting for the issues to be resolved so people can listen on the phone to the argument in the federal court in Pennsylvania. And that's it. That's all that's left. None of these cases had merit. Every single one of them was bogus.
In Pennsylvania and in Michigan in the last couple of days, lawyers have presented witnesses that simply ask questions about whether their votes were counted. Judges then turned to those lawyers and said, are you alleging fraud? And here's the great thing about having these court cases. Those lawyers know that they'll be sanctioned for misrepresentations or lies.
Right.
Both of those lawyers retreated and said no. One lawyer said, to my knowledge at present, no.
Right.
When asked directly, they are denying that they're alleging fraud.
They're denying that they're alleging fraud. This is the case that I tweeted out from Pennsylvania a couple days ago, last week, I guess, Friday, where the judge just said, so then what is your problem? And then there was one in Nevada that the Republican lawyers were complaining the observers weren't close enough. And the judge said, well, how close were they? And they said 6 feet And the judge said, at what point does this get ridiculous? He was exasperated and he ruled against the Republicans. All across this country, judges are expressing these giant frustrations with the Trump campaign's legal filings. They have no evidence attached to them. They are saying, we have thousands of witnesses who suspect, oh my God, who suspect something bad happened. I swear to God, they're going into court saying, we have witnesses who suspect something bad happened. Something bad happened? Something bad happened. And regardless of whether these judges were appointed by Democrat or Republican presidents, they have had exactly 2 favorable rulings, 2. And both of them said, okay, if you're 10 feet away, you can move to 6 feet. And that was it. This is the culmination of all their efforts. Okay, move them to 6 feet. Now, you got Montana, a judge there, Dana Christensen in Helena, Montana, said central to some of the plaintiff's claims is the contention that there's widespread voter fraud. The evidence suggests, however, that this allegation is fiction, specifically in Montana. In Michigan, Judge Cynthia Stevens questioned attorneys about affidavits that they had gathered. Witnesses said, we think something bad happened. We suspect something bad happened. And the judge said, this is a quote, what I have at best is hearsay. If there's something that would indicate that the witness observed some activity that deprived somebody of watching the polls or deprived a poll watcher of being able to observe, I would like you to please focus my attention on that. They said they couldn't, and the judge said, come on now.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
When people are out there making bold-faced lies, you just have to call it out with facts. So we're basically fact-bombing them with the truth.
The lieutenant governor of your state said today that there have been no examples that he's seen of systemic fraud or improprieties, and that it certainly appears that Joe Biden is the president-elect. Do you agree with him?
Yes, I believe the lieutenant governor is correct in that statement.
Oh!
So there is a Republican Secretary of State, Raffensperger, in Georgia. Yes, me and the lieutenant governor agree that Joe Biden has won not just the election, but also Georgia. So here's what's happening today. There's one last case in Pennsylvania, and the reason why Rudy Giuliani is the lawyer of record today, and the reason why Rudy Giuliani is making the argument trying to defend this case, which the question before the court is dismiss or not dismiss. That's the question. Is because 3 attorneys on the eve of this argument in Pennsylvania withdrew from the case. Yes, last night, 3, Linda Kearns, John Scott, and Douglas Brian Hughes. They are all attorneys at Porter, Wright, Morris, and Arthur. That is the law firm I first started to talk to you about at the beginning of this contested election thing on November 4th, right? Because I was telling you that these lawyers are literally putting their law licenses in jeopardy, and they are literally running afoul of, the court by representing things that did not happen, things that are, not provable without any evidence attached to these cases, which was easy enough to see early. That they were in trouble, that they were going to get themselves in trouble, and they were going to screw up their entire careers going forward. And one could only wonder what was in it for them. Well, apparently the answer is not much, because on the eve of this last argument in Pennsylvania, these 3 attorneys that brought this case that is being decided today withdrew last night from this case that's being heard today. They literally filed a motion to withdraw. Why? because they understand that they have no evidence and they cannot lie to the court. So if you ever wanted to know, when is it when lawyers stop lying? You just, like, when do they stop lying? The answer is in front of the court. The answer is in front of the court. When the court asks, do you have any evidence? And they say, no, Your Honor, I don't. And then the judge says, I'm sorry then, what is your problem? That is a signal that you have no case. That is a signal that you are running afoul of the court because you brought the case in the first place on a spurious belief. You didn't even believe it yourself, and you must believe it yourself. You must be able to point to some damn thing that tells you somewhere in your presentation to the court that there's evidence that what you're saying is provable in a court of law. So that's when lawyers stop lying. In Michigan, one of the lawyer representing the poll challengers in Michigan argued that the coronavirus restrictions meant that they were positioned as far as 20 feet back, to the point where you can't see anything. So Judge Timothy Kenney, a Bush-appointed judge, said, I don't understand how the integrity of the election was affected. Where are the facts that they were 20 feet away in the first place? And in the second place, how did that affect the integrity of the election? Where are the facts about that? Mr. Kenney has served on this state court for 24 years, and he blocked their request because they had no evidence. In Montgomery, Pennsylvania, that's the case that I tweeted. I actually went through the transcript and I posted the exchange. This thing everybody picked up on, and I'm so glad that they did, because Jonathan Goldstein, he was the lawyer for the Trump campaign. And the judge, who was Richard Haas, he asked Jonathan Goldstein at this hearing last week, what is the basis that you're claiming fraud? What are you relying on to claim fraud? He said, quote, I'm asking you a specific question. I'm looking for a specific answer. Are you claiming that there's any fraud in connection with these 592 ballots? That's what they were questioning. And Goldstein, Jonathan Goldstein, the lawyer for the Trump campaign, said, to my knowledge, no. No. In Detroit, they wanted to order an independent audit. The judge did not mince words. He said, your interpretation of events inside the Detroit counting facility is incorrect and not credible. And we know this because the defense brought witnesses and you did not. He wrote, those claims were decidedly contradicted by an election expert who was present, who was brought forward by the defense. David Kalman, the attorney for these poll watchers, told ABC News, I'm appealing. And now those appeals have been canceled too. Rudy Giuliani is saying, we have people that observed people being pushed out of the polling place. We have people who observed people being pushed out of the polling place. The judge there said, you're required to have some basis for believing your claims are true. You have to have some basis, in fact, not wild speculation. These are all bogus. This is all bogus. So Lindsey Graham was just asked in the hallway of Congress, in the Senate, what are you doing? And he was asked by Manu Raju of CNN, what are you doing?
What do you say to the critics who say that you as a Trump ally, you're overreaching here and getting involved in a state election?
What I'm very concerned about is that if you're going to continue to vote by mail, that we need to know what systems work and what don't. It's up to the people of Georgia.
I mean, he thinks it's an implicit threat by what you were saying.
I categorically reject that.
You issued an implicit threat. No, I would go and recheck that. You asked the Secretary of State of Georgia, after two senators that you serve with, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, both of Georgia, are facing a runoff on January 5th in Georgia. They asked for Raffensperger to resign. based on no evidence. And then they came crying to you, didn't they, Lindsey? They came crying to you. Oh, my God, the voter turnout is off the charts. What are we going to do? We have to cheat now. We have to cheat or we're going to lose the Senate. And Lindsey said, okay, I will talk to Raffensperger and I will ask him, is there any way that in counties where you couldn't verify voter signatures, maybe 2 or 3 of them, you could throw out the whole county? Is there any way for you to do that? And Raffensperger, who, by the way, by trade is an engineer, so numbers matter to him, he said, no, Lindsey, there is no way because we could and do verify each and every signature. And paper ballots are the ballot in Georgia. And so we have these actual pieces of paper. And we can count these actual real pieces of paper. And when we count these actual real pieces of paper, we verify the actual voter signature. Not only do we verify it when we send them the actual piece of paper, but we've also verified their signature when they requested that we send them the actual piece of paper. Then when the actual piece of paper comes in, we check their signature. And then when we count them in a hand recount, we can pull up their photo ID and verify it that way. So there's no way that we can't verify signatures for any paper ballot that we count. And no, there is no way to throw out entire counties. And no, Donald Trump did not win. Donald Trump lost, Lindsey. And there will be a runoff for these 2 senators, Loeffler and Perdue, on the 5th. And quite frankly, we'll do the same damn thing. We're going to send ballots out to people who request them after we check their signature. And then we're going to send, when they send their ballots in, we're going to check their signature. And if there's any dispute, we'll do a hand recount and we'll check their photo ID on top of it. That's why Lindsey Graham is messing around in Georgia. I'm telling you, everything that's going on right now, everything, is about the Senate. Because there isn't a person alive, not a person alive, not an elected official, not a Secretary of State, not a governor, not anybody at a decision desk, not any lawyer in this country left who believes that Donald Trump was cheated, or that this election wasn't free and fair, or that something untoward happened. There is not a single person alive who believes that. The only reason why this is being done by a South Carolina senator in Georgia is because there is a Georgia runoff that will determine whether Lindsey is the Judiciary Committee chairman.
Mary had a little ram.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I want to show you 2 lines that will tell you everything you need to know about the American economy right now. The first is this one, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which shot up 470 points today as the news about Moderna's potential COVID vaccine spurred a bout of somewhat irrational exuberance among the nation's investor class. The second line I need to show you isn't on a graph. It's a line of thousands of cars, all waiting to receive food from a food bank in Dallas metro area.
Oh, my God.
Here's the report from a local CBS station.
From the ground, you could see cars lined up everywhere at Fair Park. When you take a wider view from the air, the length of the line was as far as the eye could see, backed up onto the freeway.
I haven't been working since December, March. Can't find a job. They cut off my unemployment. It's a big deal. It's a real big deal.
So this is a big blessing for us to be able to get this.
This crisis has not only decimated this economy over the past several months, it's also exacerbated one of America's biggest economic problems, the growing divide between the stock-owning and wage-working classes. Today, the president-elect also made a direct case for Congress to take decisive action before he takes office.
There's a reason why the federal government is able to run a deficit.
because the states must balance their budgets, and they're in real trouble. You're going to see hundreds of thousands of police officers, firefighters, first responders, mental health clinics. You're going to see them going out of business. Right now, Congress should come together and pass a COVID relief package like the HEROES Act that the House passed 6 months ago.
Exactly. This is the tale of two countries, okay? You have those lines in Dallas. Oh my God. And they're all over the country. Food pantry lines. People are unable to buy food. The unemployment stimulus package is expiring. You have 11 million more people without jobs before, now than we did before Donald Trump took office. You have absolutely no communication going on between the House and the Senate on this stimulus package passing in a lame duck session. Everybody, Mitch McConnell, he just wanted to wait. He wanted to wait. Let's see what happens in the election. Let's see what, like it's some reality TV show. We'll tune in next week. Let's see what people are literally starving. COVID is off the charts, especially in Texas. El Paso. There's 1,000 people in the hospital in El Paso, Texas. It is shockingly bad. Washington State is in trouble. Idaho is in trouble. North Dakota is in trouble. South Dakota is in trouble. There was a nurse. This is just an amazing story, okay? There is a nurse. Her name is Jody Doring. Okay, and she works in South Dakota, Kristi Noem State, where you're free to die, everybody. You're free to just, spread your droplets on people that aren't ready to die, who don't want to die, who aren't ready to go, who really aren't into it at all. But, you got your freedom to infect them at will. And Kristi Noem is, not willing to do anything to help the people of South Dakota with this pandemic. And you got a nurse who actually went on the television because she tweeted this out and people were in shock. But her story is she's an ER nurse tending to people who are dying alone from COVID. And while they're being given high flow oxygen therapy, they are denying to their dying breath that they have COVID because COVID isn't real. It isn't real. This is what their governor, this is what the president of the United States, this is what Fox News and One America News Network and right-wing lunatic fringe talk radio is telling these people. And these people are ingesting these lies, and literally on their deathbeds, they are denying that they're dying of COVID. They're saying, no, it's probably lung cancer. They'd rather think they have lung cancer. This is sick.
The hospital is being overrun with COVID patients. They come in, they're horribly ill, they're gasping for breath, and yet they don't believe they have COVID?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing to watch is that people are still looking for something else, and they want a magic answer. And they don't want to believe that COVID is real. And the reason I tweeted what I did is it wasn't one particular patient. It's just a culmination of so many people. And their last dying words are, this can't be happening. It's not real. And when they should be spending time FaceTiming their families, they're filled with anger and hatred. And it just made me really sad the other night. And I just can't believe that those are going to be their last thoughts and words.
Holy crap. So they go from a state of denial to a frozen morgue truck. I'm a COVID skeptic, and now I'm a statistic. It's unbelievable. She was like, she's freaking out here.
How could it not make your own head explode? They're gasping for breath. Their oxygen levels are dropping. What do they think is wrong with them?
I think people look for anything. People want it to be influenza. They want it to be pneumonia. They want it to be, we've even had people say, well, I think maybe it might be lung cancer. Something so far-fetched. And the reality is, since day one, when COVID started in this area in March, you've kind of been able to say if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. Like, I hate to tell you that you have COVID, but that's what you have. You know, even after positive results come back, some people just don't believe it. Now, that's not everybody. We have a lot of patients who are very, very grateful for their care and very thankful for what you do. But unfortunately, that's not what I'm remembering right now. And as my nursing career, that's not what I want to be remembering for. I want to remember the saves and the happy situations. And what I was remembering chilling on the couch the other night with my dog was not that.
Of course not. I mean, of course not. And it's just so mind-blowing to think that they would rather have lung cancer. They'd rather a diagnosis of lung cancer than of coronavirus. And so, I mean, you've said that it just, I mean, if I quote you from morning television, it's an effing horror movie that you live every day. And so what toll is this taking on you?
Yeah, hindsight, I didn't realize that this was going to go viral. I probably could have left the F-bomb out of there, but the reality is that's how you feel. And so it is like it's just a movie where the credits never roll. You just do it all over again. And it's hard and sad because every hospital, every nurse, every doctor in this state is seeing the same things. These people get sick in the same way. You treat them in the same way. They die in the same way, and then you do it over again. And we're so thankful for the lessons we've learned along the way, and we're doing a good job of taking care of the people that come in. And we're managing our patient loads here right now. Sometimes it's day to day, sometimes it's hour to hour. But the reality is that right now it's not getting better. You said just as you started the show, 50 to 60% positivity rate. Wow. I mean, our entire state has 880,000 people. It doesn't take much to do the math on that for how many of us are sick.
Oh my God. 50% positivity is like 1 in 2 people. It's like, this is the motorcycle rally. This is the Trump super spreader events. They have 62,521 current COVID cases in a state that has 880,000 total population. 821 new cases just yesterday in South Dakota. And people are in complete denial. Complete denial. Their last dying words are, this can't be happening. It's not real. It's a hoax. Well, that's what I said on Election Eve 2016, and I had to get used to it. You need to get used to it.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We're here at the medical center, and there are more than 1,000 COVID patients in El Paso hospitals right now. For perspective, only 25 states have those kind of numbers. Now, the county judge here is working with businesses on new health restrictions as leaders across the country are working on new measures to slow the spread of the virus.
Across the country, a return of scenes from the earliest days of the pandemic. Long lines for testing from Los Angeles to Miami. In Chicago, grocery store shelves were emptied of essentials like toilet paper and cleaning supplies on Monday after the city's stay-at-home advisory went into effect. And each day, a parade of state and local leaders announcing new coronavirus restrictions.
This is simply the fastest increase California has seen.
California Governor Gavin Newsom announced Monday he was pulling an emergency brake on California's reopening, halting most indoor activities in 41 of the state's 58 counties. In Iowa, the strain on state hospitals led Governor Kim Reynolds to announce a new mask mandate in nearly all indoor spaces and a ban on indoor gatherings of more than 15 people after months of resisting calls to do so.
If Iowans don't buy into this, we lose, and our healthcare system will fail, and the cost in human life will be high.
And after new coronavirus cases jumped 700% in 2 months, Philadelphia officials announced a 6-week ban on indoor dining, gyms, and museums across the city.
The consequences to health of not doing it are really bad.
There are some disturbing numbers out from the American Academy of Pediatrics. They say more than 1 million U.S. children have tested positive to date. That's 1 in every 11 cases since the start of the pandemic. And something else to consider, students are going to be coming home for the upcoming holiday season, and the CDC says while younger people and children tend to recover faster, they can also spread the disease much quicker.
Jesus. 1 million children have COVID that we know of. 1,000 people are in the hospital in a small town. In El Paso, Texas, you have 880,000 total population in South Dakota, and the positivity rate there is 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2, 50% of the people that are taking a COVID test come back positive in South Dakota. And what a great job Kristi Noem's doing. What a great job. 1 in every 2 of her citizens are positive for COVID. The hospitals are inundated. The people that are dying there while they're on vapotherm, which is high-flow oxygen therapy, are denying that they're dying of COVID. They'd rather be dying of lung cancer or pneumonia or any other thing. And then they deny. And instead of calling their family or FaceTiming with their family, their last words are, "It's a hoax." And then they go from denial to a morgue truck. I mean, this is insane how this propaganda created this death cult. But Kristi Noem, she's cute, right? So who cares? She's cute. And it's South Dakota. You know, F it. Don't you get that this economy cannot recover until this virus is put in check? People, that's why there's no see, Americans don't panic except around the issue of toilet paper. And you just saw that in that report. Shelves get wiped out of toilet paper. Other than that, we're fine. We're cool. We don't panic.
We're here at the medical center. And
I mean, this is just so unbelievable. And the only way that we go back to anything that looks like normal is if we can actually do this massive testing that we need. Everybody needs to know whether or not they have COVID. This is the argument that we have been having here for almost a year now. 10 months. 10 months. Where are the test kits? We literally, America couldn't come up with swabs. Can you believe this swill? And so I told my people, slow the testing down, please. And that is what happened. Couldn't find swabs, couldn't get test kits out. He thinks a test causes COVID. And he is literally the impediment to every single step forward that we could be taking. If you knew that listen, America is in line again. We're either in line for a test, we're in line for 11 hours to cast a vote, we're in line for food banks, we're in line at the unemployment office. I mean, this is becoming, like Soviet Russia, okay, where people are literally in line for toilet paper, in line for food. It's the most amazing hobbling of a country I've ever seen happen, and it's happening here, and it's happening in real time. And all we need, to tell you the truth right now, testing. If you knew you had it, and 1 in 2 people in South Dakota do, then you'd be able to stay home, isolate, hopefully not get too sick, recover, and get back to it. But if you don't know you have it, and you're traveling all over the country, or if you do know you have it and you're traveling all over the country, you're spreading it to everybody. You're an impediment to progress. And the Senate, my God, they still won't get the money out the door. I don't know how they expect to win this runoff in Georgia. I really, honestly, for the life of me, I don't know how they expect to win in Georgia. They won't get the stimulus money out the door. They've done nothing on testing. These people that have already voted once, they're going to do it again, but they waited online for 11 freaking hours to cast a ballot. And all you have to do in this country is tell somebody that they can't do something, and that's what they want to do.
We all agreed that we want to get the economy back on track. We need our workers to be back on the job by getting the virus under control. We're going into a very dark winter. Things are going to get much tougher before they get easier. And that requires sparing no effort to fight COVID so that we can open our businesses safely, resume our lives, and put this pandemic behind us. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done. And they all agreed. That means rallying the country behind a national strategy with robust public health measures like mandatory masking, widely available testing with rapid results, scaled up production of life-saving treatments and therapeutics, and safe, equitable, and free distribution of the vaccine.
The first step in all of that, masking. Second step in all of that, testing. Then down the road, there'll be a vaccine, but it's going to take 2 doses, and I believe that the doses have to be a month apart. People are still going to have to take care to not infect each other for a really long time. And the prioritization of like who gets it first is going to be the medical, it's going to be the nurses and the doctors and the frontline workers. It's going to be firefighters and EMTs. It's going to be teachers. So we got to wait. People are just so stupid. I don't know. Some are dumb, and some have been lied to so hard, but some are in a death cult.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, Gretchen Whitmer is being threatened by Trumpanzees at the behest of Trump and Dr. Scott Atlas, who, by the way, today, Scott Atlas, who is associated with Stanford denounced him today and said what Dr. Scott Atlas is, saying about go maskless and herd immunity, and that you should have multi-generational Thanksgiving dinners because this could be the last Thanksgiving for Loretta. And so I have to have Loretta in the house with, Jessica, because they said, you know what, pay no attention to him because we at Stanford, we don't. We denounce him. Meanwhile, Gretchen Whitmer has been threatened. Scott Atlas tweeted, rise up against Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, who was threatened with kidnapping and death. And she was asked about it. She said, it just takes my breath away.
This has been such a difficult time for you personally, but obviously for your state. And this tweet certainly did not help.
It actually took my breath away, to tell you the truth. We are in the midst of the worst weeks of this pandemic. We've been going through this for 9 months, and right now the numbers are as bad as they've been at any given time. And so we have to take aggressive measures. With the vacuum of leadership in Washington, D.C., it's on the state's governors to do what we can to save lives and to follow epidemiologists and public health experts. And they're telling us not to gather indoors as our temperatures plummet and we're on the brink of flu season. We know we have to take action now to save lives. The modeling, Mika, shows that we'll lose another 20,000 people just here in Michigan between now and the middle of February if we don't take aggressive action now. So for 3 weeks, we're going to tighten things up, batten down the hatches, and try to get everyone to rise to the challenge in front of us.
It's unbelievable. It did not have to be this way. It just did not. If everybody had access to testing, and the President of the United States led on this issue and said, mask up, everybody, here's testing. Everybody can know every minute of every day whether or not they're positive for COVID, and you can isolate accordingly, or you can go to work accordingly, or you can open your school accordingly. Then we wouldn't have been in this situation where not only are we looking at 11 million cases right now, we're over 11 million. We're at 11,289,297 cases. We're right around 250,000 deaths. Okay, we're at 248,000 dead. 250 is 250,000 dead Americans. And she's talking about 20,000 dead in one state. North Dakota, 50% positivity, 50%, 1 in every 2 people has COVID. What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, really, what do you think? It's just so sad and sick. And the nurses there, the doctors that are risking their lives, the anger that the patients are spewing at them, because they don't want it. They are so indoctrinated into this death cult. They are so indoctrinated into fake news and propaganda and all of this that they are on their deathbeds denying A, that they're dying, and B, that they're dying of COVID. 1 million children have COVID. 1 million. And they're carriers. You know that. And this president won't concede. And on top of it, won't allow Joe Biden to be briefed by the National Institutes of Health, the Center for Disease Control, Health and Human Services. I mean, what the hell? This is the sickest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And Biden knows people are going to die, because of the delay here.
What do you see as the biggest threat to your transition right now, given President Trump's unprecedented attempt to obstruct and delay a smooth transfer of power?
More people may die if we don't coordinate. If we have to wait until January 20th to start that planning, it puts us behind over a month and a half.
In a country where the current president is fond of calling the news media the enemy of the people because they tell the truth about him, what should we call Emily Murphy? Joe Biden said, more people may die if we don't coordinate. And the only reason they are not coordinating, transitioning, is Emily Murphy. She is the reason. Emily Murphy is the reason more people may die.
She's the General Services Agency administrator. She's the one that has to ascertain that this is over, and she won't do it. And as long as she won't do it, and as long as the President of the United States won't concede, and as long as the President of the United States is employing or deploying, however you want to say it, a scorched earth theory of America, just burn it down to the ground, which is what we said he was going to do months and months ago, way before the election. I said, you could see it now. He's going to burn this thing down to the ground. He is one of those psychopaths. If I can't have America, nobody else can. I want everyone dead, or I want America in harm's way. I want it attacked. I want it, terrorized. I want cities burning. I want people dying in the streets. I want long lines waiting for food. I want lines waiting to vote. I want lines waiting for testing. I want all of it. I want this country broken. I want it burned down to the ground. And everyone who has a brain understands that is what he's doing. Last Thursday, this was a sick story yesterday. Last Thursday, Donald Trump called a meeting of his cabinet and asked, can I attack Iran? Can I? Mike Pence, Pompeo, then Secretary of Defense Esper, who's since been fired, said, no, you can't. It would start a wider war. I think he's still mulling it over. I think he still wants to do it. It's really twisted.
We have reporting that President Trump was, within the last 48 hours or so, discussing a possible strike against Iran.
Yes, that's always possible. And again, I think it emphasizes the extraordinary power that the president has, a sitting president, even one who is soon to depart office. And as we learn, presidents can start wars on their own. They are commander-in-chief. They can employ the force as they see fit. Congress can take away the money, but that's unlikely, particularly if it's a reasonable military operation. Now, whether one in Iran or somewhere else in the world would be reasonable, I don't know. One of the things in doing this reporting for almost 50 years, Lawrence, is that there are people in the military, in the intelligence world, in the White House who won't do certain things.
And that's what we're counting on, okay? We are literally counting on people in the White House that won't do certain things. Because, you know, a president can launch. He can't declare war. But we're all smarter than that. We know they'll call it a police action or some other thing, and he's mulling it over. He's trying to figure out whether or not he should bomb Iran.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, I swear he's the worst president ever.
While President Trump refuses to concede, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, became the latest high-ranking administration official to acknowledge Mr. Biden will likely be president.
If the Biden-Harris ticket is determined to be the winner, and it's, you know, obviously things look that way now, we'll have a very professional transition.
But on a call with governors, Vice President Mike Pence made no mention of any transition. Despite there being no evidence of widespread voter fraud, the Trump campaign and Republican voters have filed more than a dozen lawsuits to stop the certification of the results. The president lost in all but one.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama posted about the transition on Instagram, stating in part to play along with these groundless conspiracy theories, whether for personal or political gain, is to put our country's health and security in danger. This isn't a game.
Oh! It's not a game. It's not a game. Governing is not a game, and the United States of America is not a game, and American lives are not pieces on a chessboard to be played with. And that is what's going on here. It is just, you know, yesterday, you know how many cases we had yesterday, new cases? 166,655 new cases in one day. Yesterday, 1,266 people died, and today, 73,000 people, this is the most ever, are in the hospital. 73,000 people are in the hospital today. Today. We're about to cross the Rubicon into 250,000 plus dead people because of this man. Because this man thought, I'm going to downplay it. I mean, this is just bizarre. I mean, now he will not pass the baton so that the incoming administration can actually do something about organizing testing, organizing PPE, organizing. They won't pass a stimulus package. You know what that means? Cities and states are broke. They are broke. They have to balance their budgets. They can't deficit spend. That means sanitation workers, teachers, EMTs, firefighters, police officers, they are going to either have to work for free, seriously, or go home. They'll be in food lines. They'll split their time between taking out the dead and cleaning up the streets and being in a food line. He is the worst president ever. Ever. Fred in Arizona.
Hey, Randi. You're doing a great job as usual.
Thanks.
And I agree with you. He is the worst president ever.
Ever.
But he is the best Russian agent that Putin could ask for. Because the way I see it, everything he's doing is exactly what his daddy Vlad wants him to do. With the rise of the coronavirus, what continues to weaken us. And it makes me wonder, we talked about the numbers of people infected, but how many of those people might actually be our military? And that makes us a weaker country if we can't deploy. If our military is sick, where does that leave us? If there was something.
Oh, don't worry. This is America. We'll, you know, when it comes to soldiers, we'll make more. You know, we'll always make more.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure both of us will pick up a weapon and be out there on the front line if we have to. But it just seems like this is exactly playing into what Putin wants as far
So
as
here is Putin's
us being a weaker country.
This was the goal of Vladimir Putin all along and over these past 5 years, okay? Beginning in 2015 when Donald Trump understood that Putin was going to help him, and he was excited for the help and asked for the help and was welcoming the help. We know that from the Mueller report. The reason why Vladimir Putin liked Donald Trump is because he was so divisive. And Vladimir Putin's entire goal is to tell his people that democracy doesn't work, that he's the best thing that ever happened to them over there, that being poor in Russia, that allowing Vladimir Putin to have, all the money in the world and to select oligarchs is the best way, it's the only way to govern, that democracy is messy. Look what it does in America. It can't work. It doesn't work. People can't even agree on what's really happening to them. They're willing to die for this guy. Democracy is a sham. It's a hoax. It's a losing system. That's what Putin wants. And that's what he got. That's what he got for this.
Yep, and I look at it, makes me think about Paul Manafort, and when he said, "Does this make us whole? Will this make me whole?" And I look at Trump; he's got that $400 billion. Is this going to make him whole?
Let's not forget what Paul Manafort was talking about. He was talking to Oleg Deripaska, and Oleg Deripaska had paid Paul Manafort to come up with a media plan to destroy people's faith in democracy, okay? And that is what Paul Manafort was paid to do. And that's why when he picked Trump, and it wasn't the other way around, he said to Oleg, won't this make me whole? Wouldn't this settle our debt? I got the most divisive guy on the planet. He's going to destroy everybody's faith in democracy here at home, here in America.
Yes, and Trump owes $400 billion, whatever. Is this going to help to make him whole with whoever he owes? Because we don't know who he owes his money to.
No, we don't know who he owes his money to. And I don't really care who he owes his money to, because the truth of the matter is Donald Trump is not out the door. We have 64 chaotic days ahead of us. He wants to pull troops out of Afghanistan overnight, and it can't be done, which is why I'm not too hysterical, because you got a lot of heavy equipment, etc. But they're talking about something like the fall of Saigon, right? Where the whole place and the allies, our allies are doing the heavy lifting in Afghanistan. We're there for support, intelligence, and recon and things like that. But this idea that he wants to bomb Iran, the idea that he's going to pull troops out of Afghanistan and leave a vacuum there, the idea that we're waiting in line now to get food, and we're waiting in line to get testing, and the idea that people are on their deathbed denying that COVID is real, tells you that this propaganda machine that Vlad unleashed here in the United States is working. And why? It's just to say to everybody here in this country, democracy doesn't work. Find another way. Choose a king, take an oath of loyalty to the king, and get on with your lives. Because unless and until you do that, you're going to live in a country that's flailing. You're going to have chaos. That's the message. Linda in Missouri.
Yes. Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the Senate.
Okay.
What it is Mitch McConnell, Josh Hawley, all of them need to grow some and go to Trump, because he can't fire them. And tell him he needs to knock it off. Take his toys and go home.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, Linda.
I mean, I don't think they have any balls.
Oh, dump it. No, they don't. They care about their party. They care about their power. They don't give a rat about you or me, your family, my family, your small business, my small business. They don't care about anything but themselves, their own power. This party, conservatism was always a bum deal, because it always included the redistribution of the tax dollars that we all pay because we work, which is taxed at a higher rate than people who inherit money or people who make money off of money. Our labor is the lion's share of the revenue that the IRS gets, that the Treasury sees. And they're very intent in the conservative world on taking that money and redistributing it away from us and to their donors and to their lapdogs and to the people that pay them to run for office. Conservatism was always a bum deal for working people, always. But that it's gone this far, that it allows for the American people to doubt that democracy even works anymore, that it allows people to want to shoot each other instead of getting rid of this party that has always posed itself as something that, represented God and country. No, it represents power, period. Power over God and country. What you think about God, what you think about country. It's always been a losing plan, but it has gone so far that it's literally destroying democracy.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal. To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey!
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
It was a dramatic night in Michigan. Here's what happened. 2 Republican county officials in Michigan's largest county, which includes Detroit, refused to certify the election results in that county. 2 Republican county officials. And that prompted a backlash from voters who accused those officials of essentially trying to disenfranchise them. So the Republican officials reversed course by the end of the night, just a short time after their initial move. So those results are going to be certified. They are going to move forward. But President Trump was watching all of this. He was tweeting. He called the stalemate a, quote, beautiful thing. Michigan's Secretary of State, a Democrat, though, said there were no irregularities and no evidence of widespread fraud. So essentially debunking the initial reason that those Republican county officials were blocking the results in the first place. Bottom line here, Craig, even if that stalemate had continued in that county, it's very unlikely it would have reversed the results of Michigan, a state that President-elect Biden won by more than 148,000 votes.
Oh my God! Were you part of that last night, or did you check out, or did you go watch, The Crown or something on the Netflix? I don't know. Wow, talk about I can't breathe. I can't breathe. This was taking my breath away. Last night. This whole contretemps, this drama went on for about 6 hours last night in the state of Michigan. There was a canvassing board in Wayne County that somebody needs to do math. Somebody needs to do math. There's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And guess what happened, everybody? Guess what happened? The Democrats didn't agree with the Republicans on the certification of the vote, and so you had a stalemate. Oh, no. Yeah, it was unbelievable, and it was the Republicans that were sitting on this canvassing board that said, hey, maybe if we don't certify, then the state can choose its own electors. Maybe the legislature will do it, and we can... it was a last-ditch effort to try and overturn the results of a free and fair election in Michigan. And, it wouldn't have, because Donald Trump lost Michigan by a lot. Almost 150,000, 148,000 votes, by a lot. And so but this disenfranchisement of a predominantly black city called Detroit, everybody understood just what was going on there. And the voters, especially in Detroit and that county, Wayne County, were having none of it. Neither were the two Democrats on the canvassing board, because there were no irregularities at all. There were none. But the Trump campaign, Jenna Ellis, who is, on the Trump campaign, she was tweeting and she was out there saying if the state board follows suit, the Republican state legislator will select the electors, and won't that be great? Huge win for @real Donald Trump. She's a lawyer, for God's sake. She's the legal advisor to this campaign. She's the one that's telling lawyers, oh, go ahead, risk your entire law license, risk your entire reputation, risk your entire career by pissing off your favorite judge. Go in front of any judge and try and tell them that there's fraud. Go ahead and try. Manufacture something for a judge. That's who Jenna Ellis is. Anyway, Donald Trump saw it. He started tweeting and retweeting. It's a beautiful thing. Disenfranchisement is a beautiful thing to Donald Trump, who is holed up in the White House. I mean, this is like 9/11 territory, right? Where, remember Dick Cheney? He was hiding in a bunker somewhere in a mountain. We didn't even know where he was. Remember that? That's what Donald Trump is doing. He refuses to do his job. We are in the middle of a pandemic. You're seeing 1 million cases each week, new cases each week, every week. And Donald Trump refuses to do his job, but he's tweeting like a moron. He's tweeting and tweeting. It's a beautiful thing for disenfranchisement. Well, so the media reached out to the Secretary of State in Michigan. Her name's Joycelyn Benson, and she's also a boss lady. You got to leave this governing thing to us girls. Just saying. We can do it. Just saying, okay? Randi the Riveter. That's me. But anyway, so she was on TV and she was saying, don't worry, we will certify this. It may not be certified, in Wayne County, but the state board will do it. There's no irregularities here that can't be fixed. There was a couple of, bookkeeping errors. And she was pointing out there were more bookkeeping errors in previous elections than there were in this particular one that had the greatest turnout ever in that state. And yet there were fewer bookkeeping errors, and that's what it amounted to, okay?
The next step is the State Board of Canvassers will typically, in their meeting tomorrow morning, give the Bureau of Elections the responsibility of completing the canvass, basically looking into those clerical errors, which are essentially issues of voters showing up or not voting or spoiling a ballot, just basic things that have happened in communities all across the state, and cleaning those up, addressing them, finding explanations, and then submitting it to the State Board for a full certification. So we're still full steam ahead with the certification of the votes in Michigan. We're certainly not going to allow any blatant partisan attempts to disenfranchise African-American voters to stand in the way of that. In my office, I in the Bureau of Elections is committed to ensuring continuously that the votes are counted, that every valid vote is counted, and that voices are heard in every community throughout the state.
Okay, so she went on TV to say, don't worry. This was really, this is just people being, partisan, douches is what it is. These are people that are, going down with the ship. They are Trump pansies, and they will do whatever. Even though there's no, they are there. We have a state board. They can canvass this county. And after they canvass this county, because this county won't certify, they will tell you there's 5 errors you need to fix, and then they'll certify. So don't worry about it. Meantime, a Zoom call ensued. This was unbelievable. There was a Zoom call with voters, with the Democrats on the canvassing board. There's a man, his name is Ned Stabler. He is a defender of democracy that you should, he's one of these unsung heroes, okay, whose name I would never know, you would never know, unless and until it was necessary that we know he's a businessman in Detroit. He sits on the canvassing board, and he's a Democrat, and he got on this Zoom call and started blasting the truth out to whoever would get on the Zoom call and listen.
I just want to let you know that the Trump stink, the stain of racism that you, William Hartman, and Monica Palmer have just covered yourself in is going to follow you throughout history. Your grandchildren are going to think of you like Bull Connor or George Wallace. Monica Palmer and William Hartman will forever be known in southeastern Michigan as two racists who did something so unprecedented that they disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of black voters in the city of Detroit because they were ordered to. Probably, I know, Monica, you think Q told you to do it or some other crazy stuff like that. But just know when you try to sleep tonight that millions of people around the world now on Twitter know the name Monica Palmer and William Hartman as two people completely racist and without an understanding of what integrity means or a shred of human decency. The law isn't on your side, history won't be on your side, your conscience will not be on your side, and Lord knows, when you go to meet your maker, your soul is going to be very, very warm.
William Stabler, everybody. Beautiful. That was just and so he was talking specifically to Monica Palmer, who he thinks she's part of QAnon. Okay, and she sits on the Wayne County Canvassing Board, and another guy, the other Republican, William Hartman, who, in defiance of the law, in defiance of no fraud, in defiance of the facts, in defiance of the reality that Donald Trump lost Wayne County, he lost, Joe Biden won by 68%, and all of a sudden, things changed.
Go for launch. Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We're looking at Michigan, specifically one county that is part of Detroit, where there had been a vote along partisan lines not to certify the presidential votes in that county. We're joined now by Secretary of State Benson from Michigan. Just a few moments ago, the President of the United States, for now, tweeted, "Wow, Michigan just refused to certify the election results. Having courage is a beautiful thing. The USA stands proud." No, the USA does not stand proud. It stands divided. And this is not courage. That's not what this was. This was a curiosity of politics. And now, in real time, it has been rectified. Secretary of State, what did you learn while we were in break?
Well, while we were talking, the Wayne County Board of Canvassers actually reversed their past decision and voted 4-0 to certify the full results, including the city of Detroit, for Wayne County.
Now, why would they do that?
Well, it appears that the truth won in this scenario. Basically, the evidence is clear. There were no irregularities. There was no evidence of widespread fraud. And in fact, there were simply minor clerical errors, as we were discussing, actually less clerical errors than in past election. And that really isn't a valid reason, in my view, and apparently ultimately the board, to invalidate and silence the voices of voters in the state's largest county. So I think they did the right thing. They performed their duty, and they certified the election for the voters in Wayne County.
So that was amazing, because you know that this president, while he's holed up in government housing, and I would like to change that government housing, from the White House to the jailhouse would be a good place for him to extend his stay in government housing. Okay, just saying. And there's plenty there. We'll get to it, but I just wanted to show you how they keep on this administration, this presidential administration. Think about what I'm saying. The President of the United States of America has various henchmen deployed all across this country who are Q believers, cult members, willing to die for him, and willing to disenfranchise voters en masse. Okay, with a stroke of the pen. They're willing to steal your right to vote. Now, if somebody would take away your home or your car, they would have to do it in a court of law, and they would have to show a reason for taking away your car or taking away your home, whether it was debt, failure to pay child support, you were selling drugs and the state took your stuff and is now auctioned. They'd have to prove in a court of law that there was something that required them to take from you. Now, taking away your liberty, meaning putting your behind in jail, takes an indictment. It takes, if you continue to plead not guilty, a jury of your peers to adjudicate. But for some reason, this administration and these Republicans think they can just steal your vote. Now, they try to go to court and they try to present to the court the reason they need to take away your vote. 25 lawsuits have been brought to date. All of them have been lost by Trump. All of them. He is a world heavyweight champion loser. There is no reason to take your vote from you. I just hope you feel that sense of violation as if I took your car without going to court, or I decided that I was going to take your house because I don't like you, which is basically the rationale being presented to the court. They like Trump, they don't like this Biden, or they don't like you, or they don't like black people voting, or they don't like this, or they don't. I'm sorry, that's not evidence in a court of law, and that is why they have lost all 25 cases. Yesterday, there was a case that they had won that made it up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Okay, and that particular case was argued yesterday, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court 5-2 threw it out. That had to do with election observers. They were kicked out. They weren't allowed to what? Well, the Supreme Court found that A, that's not true. B, if they were 7 feet away instead of 6 feet away, too bad for them, because there's nothing in Pennsylvania state law that says 6 feet is good, 7 feet is bad, or any feet is good, or any feet is bad. And so they threw it out of court yesterday, 5-2, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. That was the case. People were on Twitter last night and they were saying, Mark Elias, who is the lead lawyer for all of these election cases for the Democrats, okay? And he's been fighting all these, well, not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And he's the one that keeps the scorecard for us. And Mark Elias posted last night, and I retweeted it. Didn't need a comment. It was, just a winning hashtag, I think I used. He said they lost every one. 25. No, he said they lost 24 of the 25. So people were saying, well, what's the one? What's the one? Well, the one was the Pennsylvania Supreme Court election observers must be within 6 feet rule that Rudy Giuliani made up. They said there is no rule, and so they had the ability to watch, and that's all we care about, and bye-bye. So all of them have been lost, all of them. Now, yesterday I was talking about another federal court case. This was not the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. This was a federal court in Pennsylvania below the Supreme Court. And Rudy Giuliani was the lawyer for this one. Oh, my God. Okay, so how did Rudy Giuliani get to argue a case in court? Because I told you there was a white shoe law firm in Ohio that had these cases. And there were so many complaints, not only inside the law firm from lawyers, but from people outside the law firm calling the lawyers and saying what you're doing is creating doubt about a free and fair election, which everybody who participated in the counting, everyone who certified, everyone who observed, there were hundreds of observers, all are there. It's ridiculous. You have no evidence. None of your filings have evidence attached to that. We want to withdraw. The court allowed 2 lawyers to withdraw and kept 1 lawyer on the case. And so Rudy got stuck with having to present the case in federal court yesterday. All right. Mark Aronchik is the lawyer for the election board. Okay. Mark Aronchik, he's a general litigator in Philadelphia. And he got he represented us. We don't vote in Pennsylvania, but he represented the voters and the election board and the supervisors and the county supervisors and all of the poll workers yesterday in court.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Okay, so this is Mark Aronchik. He is a litigator in Philadelphia, and he went up against Rudy Giuliani yesterday in court. Here's what he had to say about the experience.
When you're in court, you have to talk about the complaint. You have to talk about your facts. You have to talk about the law. When you're at Four Seasons Total Landscaping, I guess you can talk about anything. There seemed to be no distinction in what I heard today. And I pointed that out very strongly to the court.
I swear to God, Rudy showed up and did the same presentation in a court of law, that he made at Four Seasons Total Landscaping, okay? Lawn and order. Lawn. Those are the best T-shirts. I don't know if you've seen them, but I love them. They say lawn, L-A-W-N, and order. It's hysterical. However, that is reason for Rudy to be disbarred, okay? Rudy Giuliani literally went into court yesterday asking the court to throw out 1.5 million ballots. And when he was asked about the central argument and that, the fraud that he was alleging, whether or not political parties were allowed to contact voters or, after the fact to come in and cure their ballots, or whether, what really happened, where is your evidence? I swear to God, this Mark Aronchik dude, he said, he started screaming about mafia stuff. It was this. He said, I never saw anything like it.
Some of the things that Mr. Giuliani said, really are deplorable. I mean, at one point, he even used the word mafia about some of the Philadelphia election workers that, were involved in this kind of conspiracy. I don't know what he meant by that word. I think he got over his skis. But these are people who are salt of the earth people. These are public employees. These are people who believe in democracy. These are people who want to see elections run right. And I represent them. And I'm not going to sit there and allow this kind of broadside attack on people who are just doing their jobs and without, in a fact-free presentation. a promise that, if you only let me amend this again, I'll show you all sorts of facts. I mean, we've heard this a lot. And so, I just was not going to let that happen.
Good for you. I mean, can you imagine? Everybody, imagine a world in which lawyers use their legal degrees for good things. Wow. So he's representing the supervisors of elections, the people who sat there and counted the ballots in the middle of a pandemic. Tens of thousands of people, okay, who volunteered to be poll workers, poll watchers, people who count ballots, people who tabulate ballots, people who transmit the results of those ballots, people who put ballots into scanning machines, people who do audits, people who canvass. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of ordinary Americans who show up to do this work. And they are so insulted. They find everything that is going on offensive, no matter, who they were for, because they put in the hours. They work 16 hours a day in some states to count ballots, to scan ballots, to verify signatures, to verify, that certain states had you had to have your signature certified by a notary public. I mean, the stuff that they make voters go through just in order to cast a ballot. And then the people who are in charge of enforcing whatever the state rules are, the officials are frustrated, they are offended, they are insulted, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Now, I just want to tell you that, while I told you that Michigan was won by 148,000 votes by Joe Biden, Pennsylvania was won by 72,300 votes by Joe Biden. This is their insanity trying to cast doubt on the Biden presidency. That is, at this point, what this is about. I don't know that it was always about that. I think that there were some people like Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows and a couple of freaks out there that either thought that they could be successful in disenfranchising large swaths of voters, or they thought they might find fraud, or they thought that they might find, ballots, people stealing ballots or hiding ballots. None of that happened. None of it. And we've known this for a really long time. And we've known this because there are several organizations within our own government that do election protection and monitor our elections. I told you we had the Organization of American States here. Okay, these are people who usually monitor elections in places like Guyana and Zimbabwe. They were here monitoring our election because the President of the United States was screaming there would be fraud before we even cast a ballot, right? And so we have CISA, which that is a cybersecurity portion of the Department of Homeland Security under Chad. Yes, Chad Wolf. There is a cybersecurity outfit. There's a whole bunch of people who have eyes on our elections. And they all certified that this was the safest, freest, fairest election in American history in the middle of a pandemic. And part of that is because the voting machines created paper this time. Paper. It's kind of hard to argue with a piece of paper. It's kind of hard. And they couldn't. And so now the people that did this really hard work, they're getting offended. They're getting insulted. You got the Minnesota Secretary of State. His name is Steve Simon, which is also the name of my cousin. Steve Simon, he told ABC News, these allegations are an insult to the tens of thousands of people who work very hard to administer an election. In Florida, Collier County, which is not exactly, a bastion of anything, they said, we're very offended. We know how hard we work to conduct free and fair elections and follow Florida law, said Jennifer Edwards, the supervisor of elections in Collier County, Florida. Now, I just want you to know, Collier County, Florida had 90% of its registered voters cast a ballot this year. 90%. So she had her hands full. And they're offended. She said, we're rather offended. Okay, the officials who guided us through this 2020, they said, listen, we're in the middle of a deadly pandemic. We had protests. We had cries of voter fraud. We're baffled. We're frustrated with it already. It was free. It was fair. Everything was like by the book. There were some clerical errors. They were caught. They were fixed. Milwaukee Election Commission Executive Director Claire Woodall-Vaugh, they deserve to have their names mentioned at least once, right? She said all of our processes and procedures were open and transparent. We're confident any review of the election will reveal that. Well, it looks like they're going to do a recount in Wisconsin. Donald Trump wants certain counties, just certain ones, like the ones that have black people in them and Democrats in them. He wants a recount. And he's going to have to pay for it. But uniformly, all of these election officials, regardless of party affiliation, Georgia's all Republicans, right? Raffensperger, the Secretary of State there, is a Republican. They said, no one found any evidence of any fraud.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
This morning, explosive new accusations in Georgia's ongoing election recount.
It is inaccurate to say that there's widespread voter fraud in the state of Georgia.
Its Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, says fellow Republican Senator Lindsey Graham called him up, asking if it was possible to throw out some legally cast absentee ballots. First telling the Washington Post, quote, it sure looked like he was wanting to go down that road. Graham defiant when confronted about the accusations.
Did you or did you not ask him to throw out votes?
No, that's ridiculous. I talked to him about how you verify signatures.
Graham says he called Secretary Raffensperger to find out more about the state's signature verification process. In Georgia, when an absentee ballot is ready to be counted, the voter's signature on the envelope is compared with the signature already associated with them in the state's registration system. Once the signature is verified, the ballot and the envelope are separated to protect the secrecy of the voter's choice. But that process isn't done again in a recount. Graham allegedly suggesting that opened up the possibility for ballots to be invalidated.
I felt that he implied that for us to audit the envelopes and then throw out the ballots of counties who had the highest frequency error rate of signatures.
Senator Graham, an ally of President Trump, who himself has recently attacked Georgia's Secretary of State and the state's vote counting process.
Why is a senator from South Carolina calling the Secretary of State in Georgia anyway?
Because the future of the country hangs in the balance.
Overnight in Georgia's Fayette County, the recount turned up a memory card with nearly 2,800 votes on it, resulting in about 400 more votes for President Trump.
Woohoo.
President-elect Biden currently leads in Georgia by nearly 13,000 votes.
Oh! Raffensperger is a Republican, as we all learned, Secretary of State of Georgia. Lindsey Graham is from South Carolina, calling Raffensperger, asking Raffensperger whether or not he had any ballots that they couldn't verify signatures for. And if in then that county where they had like 2 or 3 ballots or 5 ballots or 10 ballots, could they then throw out all the ballots from that county? The answer was no. And the reason he's interested in this is because Lindsey Graham wants to remain the Judiciary Committee chairman so he can push through more judges, more. He's going to need to handpick somebody who's going to hear his case, okay? Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, how in the F could you possibly allow these men to hold any position of power, let alone majority leader of the United States Senate and the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, which oversees the courts as a function of Congress? I mean, this is so... Look, here's the thing about democracy. It's just an experiment. And why do I say that? Because it is an experiment that relies on people of character holding various jobs throughout the system. That's why I'm showing you, canvassing board members. That's why I'm showing you secretaries of state in each and every state, district attorneys, U.S. attorneys. It matters who they are. It matters who the judges are. It matters that they are people of character, not party affiliation, because some of these judges were appointed by Bush. Others of these judges were appointed by Trump. Others of these judges were appointed by Clinton, and others of these judges were appointed by Obama. It doesn't matter. What matters is, are they people of character who look at the law and decide whether or not the law has been met, violated, and if they're alleging violation of the law, what is your proof? Show me the money. Show me the evidence. Show me something. And when you can't, these judges say, at what point does this get to be ridiculous? Another judge asked, there were hundreds of watchers, poll watchers in there. So what is your problem? Another judge asked, are you alleging fraud? Lawyer, Jonathan Goldstein, no, Your Honor. Then why are you here? Donald Trump operates on litigation as a threat, and also when there's an open investigation. Donald Trump relies on the unanswered question at the end of the investigation that will be answered once it's completed as a tool to manipulate you, to try and explain to you there was fraud. You'll see. Wait, you'll see quickly. You'll see strongly. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Well, we saw what happens. And what happens is there is no evidence. Rudy Giuliani argued as if he was at Total Landscaping. He had no evidence. The judge in that case just canceled the evidentiary hearing, saying there is no need because there is no evidence. There is none. It has never, ever showed up. We're done with you. That's the Pennsylvania. So now they're on to Nevada. Oh, yes, Nevada, you're next. All right. Joe Biden won Nevada by 33,596 votes. They had a press conference yesterday, the Trump campaign lawyers did, and presented zero evidence but alleged irregularities. And enough irregularities to overturn 33,596 legally cast ballots. That's what they're alleging now. We've uncovered enough evidence of questionable votes. We're quite confident in the fact that when the law and the facts are clearly adjudicated in this matter, it will be very clear that once all the voting happened, once everything occurred, the results were unreliable because of irregularities and fraud, declared the Trump lawyers. Clark County, which is Vegas, which is where the people live, said in a statement to The Independent, that's the newspaper that's reporting this, in an emailed statement that the county has not even seen the lawsuit yet, but it sounded like they were recycling and repeating allegations that the courts have already rejected, that they are misrepresenting and misstating evidence produced in those proceedings, and that they are simply parroting erroneous false allegations made by partisans without any firsthand knowledge of any of the subject matter. Now, when you look at this lawsuit in Nevada, you know what it's asking? It's asking the judge to declare Trump the winner. I swear to God. The court should declare Trump the winner. I just, this is unbelievable. And it recycles several complaints that the courts have already heard in Nevada, no less, about the signature verification system that is used in Las Vegas. It is used as the check-in. The check-in, the first pass check-in on when you check in, you know how they take your driver's license or your ID and they scan, they run it through the check-in thing. I mean, that's how they do it in Florida. I don't know what they do exactly in Nevada, but you obviously have a check-in signature verification step before you get your ballot.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
First, they fought to birth a democracy. Then generations fought and died to defend democracy. In 2020, Americans voted. Joe Biden was elected president, with the most votes ever cast for a president in U.S. history. But still, most Republican leaders are refusing to accept the outcome of the democratic process. It's shameful, cowardly, and un-American. Across the globe, our enemies attack America by saying we really aren't a democracy. Now, Republicans are acting like Russia, Iran, North Korea, China. Are these Republicans not Americans? If a president wasn't elected legally, then no one was elected legally.
There you go.
Call your Republican officials and tell them to start acting like Americans and support democracy. The question in 2020 was America or Trump. America won.
Yeah.
It's time for Republicans to put America first.
Oh!
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Good. Seriously, America won. Democracy won. And trust me, it was a heavy lift because you have a president of the United States, you have a Senate of the United States, the U.S. Senate, you have Republican ne'er-do-wells all scattered throughout this country. You have Republican lawyers all scattered throughout this country who are alleging all kinds of things that they cannot prove, who are evidence-free, who can't show a court any of the things that they are saying is true, remotely, infinitesimally, or majorly true. They can't show anything went wrong. In fact, the security chief, Chris Krebs, you know his name because I saw him put up a rumor control site inside the Department of Homeland Security, and knowing that Homeland Security is headed by a guy named Chad, who is illegally serving. Yes, he's a lot. Oh my God. Illegally serving as the Department of Homeland Security chief because he can't get confirmed by the Senate, wasn't confirmed by the Senate, and the succession of like who was supposed to replace who after this one left and that one left, it was not followed. And so the court ruled that he's serving illegally, and any orders that he gave regarding DACA or any other thing should not be followed because they were illegal orders given by somebody illegally serving. This is the administration. How in the hell did democracy win? It's because Americans still believe. They still believe in the truth. They still believe in fairness. They still believe in freedom. They still believe in casting a ballot. And, you know, a lot of people did it. A lot of people. It was a huge turnout. And why can't the people who didn't vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, why can't they celebrate that their democracy worked? Their candidate didn't win, but it doesn't mean democracy didn't win. It doesn't mean that the election was somehow rigged or fraudulent. It just means there were more people that voted for Biden than there were who voted for Trump. And there were a lot of people who voted for both. Like an amazing turnout. But they just can't celebrate that democracy won. They just can't. They're being led by a man who propagandizes them regularly every single day. They're being led by a man who lies to them. They're being led by a man who refuses to concede, doesn't have any honor, doesn't have any character. And so when your leader is without character and concern for his fellow Americans, you could hardly expect that the rank and file are going to be any different. But it's really sad because people are losing their jobs because they're not loyal to Donald Trump's lies. They're not loyal to the charge of fraud. And this guy, Chris Krebs, who works at the Department of Homeland Security and has for a while, was the guy, well, his unit, okay, it's a whole bunch of cybersecurity experts. They had a very hard job. Their job was to protect the election from foreign interference and from fraud. In an election that was going to set all kinds of records for participation in the middle of a global pandemic that would cause people to vote by mail. Now, Donald Trump did everything that he could to suppress our voting, okay, everything, from trying to break the Postal Service to ordering, people to put like 2 polling machines in a polling place so that people would be forced to wait online for 11 hours. And you know what? People did it. People did whatever they had to do to cast their ballot. They felt the urgency of the moment. They rose to meet it. They did what they had to do. And the winner is Joe Biden. But the awesome winner is democracy itself, which Donald Trump has tried to break repeatedly and is still trying to break. And that is why, after Chris Krebs certified that the election was the freest, smoothest, fairest election, even with 11-hour lines, even with the president trying to break the Postal Service, even with some states requiring that your signature be witnessed by a notary public, which I thought was outrageous. All that was missing was how many soap bubbles in this bar of soap? How many jelly beans in the jar? List all the amendments of the Constitution and what they mean. Right? They tried so hard to break us. They tried so hard to break our country. He's still trying to break our country. He still hasn't given any instructions to this crazy woman, Emily Murphy, who is a hack at the General Services Administration, who will not ascertain that Donald Trump lost. Therefore, the keys to the kingdom get passed on to Joe Biden. You know, Donald Trump is refusing to help Joe Biden have a successful presidency. And of course, if Joe Biden has a successful presidency, America has success. But the Trump administration hasn't told, this is such a weird factoid, hasn't even told Joe Biden's coronavirus task force, quote, where the supplies are, how much of it the federal government has bought, for real. How much PPE do we have? How many face masks? How many, where are the test kits? They won't even tell Biden. They won't tell Biden how they might locate it, allocate it, or what model they're using to battle the COVID pandemic. This is a quote from Dr. Nicole Lurie, who used to work at the Department of Health and Human Services, and she told NBC News that the Biden campaign, the Biden administration incoming, the president-elect and the vice president-elect and their team are asking for help on the supplies. They won't tell them. So the CEOs of the American Hospital Association, the American Medical Association, the American Nurses Association wrote a letter to Trump asking him to please work with the Biden transition team. Please share all critical information related to COVID-19. And still, Donald Trump, you know what he did today? You know what his big day was? Okay, there's nothing on his public schedule. He wire transferred $3 million to the state of Wisconsin to pay for a recount in Milwaukee County and in Dane County, which is where Madison is, college town. That's what he did today. He's still focused on overturning the results of this free and fair election and firing anybody who says it wasn't.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Things are pretty tough right now for us. Our med-surg beds are pretty much at capacity, and then we have about 10% of our staff that are out quarantined. So we're facing staff shortages.
It's kind of an exercise in kind of system stress tolerance. How much can we take until the wheels fall off?
Are you seeing your hospital where you're working being overwhelmed with patients?
We're certainly getting a major influx. We're having to manufacture new places to put people.
We're looking at a situation where ICUs are going to be full. Even if we can create physical beds, we just won't have the staff that we need to be able to care for people the way they need to be cared for.
What is it like emotionally at this point?
Healthcare workers are carrying an enormous emotional burden and toll from the last several months. Just the level of fatigue and accumulated trauma our healthcare providers have faced already. We're at a point where people should really be looking to replenish themselves, and instead of replenishing themselves, they're climbing the highest part of the mountain.
I think exhaustion is the biggest. The nurses here are working a minimum of 4 12-hour shifts a week. And then on top of it, having all the schools be out. So you're basically working a 12-hour shift, and then you're going home at night and trying to homeschool your children.
Oh my God.
And you're doing that day after day after day.
I think a lot of us now are in kind of, for lack of a better word, siege mentality, where emotional considerations just kind of get pushed aside for a while. It is fatigue beyond fatigue.
At the point when we're most worn down, we actually have to do something that is exponentially probably going to be more work than what we've done and dealt with before.
And we can't stay home and work from home. We show up every day and we do the best we can, but you still have to deal with that mental toll it does take on you.
That horrifying fear in the back of your mind that at some point people are just going to die because there's no place for them. That gives me pause.
I do believe that there is this reckoning with how vulnerable we all are to the virus, to the possibility of being overwhelmed by it and death. I think is something that I grapple with as a doctor, but it never became so tangible until now.
What do you want people to know about how healthcare workers are feeling going into another surge?
No matter what, we are here And in the same way that we'll always be here for you, we also want people to really do all the things we know we can do to stop transmission.
At the end of the day, we're putting one foot in front of the other and showing up every morning, and that is 99% of the battle.
Wow. Incredible heroism. I mean, America is made up of like amazing humans. And we've had a boot on our throat for a really long time because you have a president who denies that this is an epidemic, a pandemic. He denies that America's doing worse than any other country because of him. He denies that, the federal government needed to have a coordinated, unified response to this early. He told Bob Woodward that he wanted to downplay it and that he knew that it was airborne and he knew that if it gets the wrong person, they're dead. But he always wanted to downplay it. He said, well, we got 15 cases, soon it'll be down to 0. I think it goes away with the heat in April. Then he said, Easter, we're going to have church services open. You'll see everybody will be back in Easter. Just such poor leadership, such a bad president, the worst president we've ever had. And now we've had an election. And most of the people in this country decided that that was true, that he is the worst president that we've ever had, and that he should join a group of 5 people in the last 100 years. Only 5 people are going to be in the group that Donald Trump is in. One-term presidents. One-term presidents. And he won't lift a finger to help the new administration even locate supplies. He won't brief them. Every medical group, every association, and associations are lobby shops. I mean, whether it's the Nurses Association or it's the Association of the hospitals, right? These are lobby shops, and they're all begging through their lawyers to the administration to please cooperate with the Biden incoming administration, cooperate with his coronavirus task force. And instead, Donald Trump spent the day wiring $3 million to Wisconsin to get a recount in Milwaukee and in Madison, okay? Thinking what? It's going to overturn the results of the Electoral College? I don't even know what he's thinking anymore. Lighting fires all over the world, so that when Joe Biden comes in, there will be such a lag in getting up and running, in even identifying the problems he's caused in the world, let alone the location of supplies, the chain of supply, the chain of supplies. Like, how does it distributing a vaccine? All these things. He won't help. He won't help. It's just the saddest, sickest, lame duck. And we knew it would be bad. We told you it was going to be bad. We told you that, this man was going to do whatever he could to scorch it, to just burn it down to the ground. Because if he can't have America, no one can have America. Even though he hates America, he hates democracy, he hates the rule of law, he violates the law 8 ways to Sunday every single day. The man, like I said, he's going to go from government housing known as the White House, the People's House, to the jailhouse, which is also a form of government housing. And he needs to. Because the people who still are willing to die for him or rig elections for him or lie for him, the people that were willing to put the information out that this was a free and fair election and were willing to put their jobs on the line. And this Chris Krebs dude, he really was fired. And he knew it was coming. He knew it. When he started this rumor control thing and he started posting the information about all the 50 states and no fraud and no irregularities to speak of that could change the outcome, maybe, a USB stick wasn't uploaded on the day it was, but stupid things like that always happen in every election. But he said that the irregularities that always happen during every election were less during this election than any other election, which was amazing because we had such giant participation in the election, he lost his job. And even Adam Kinzinger, who is a little Republican dude, he actually said that the reason why Trump is doing this is because this man, Chris Krebs, and anybody that says that the election was free and fair, including Republican secretaries of state, Republican governors like Mike DeWine, Republican canvass board members like last night in Wayne County. Okay, they had to be yelled at. They had to be their little clench on cue. Their conspiracy had to, pry their hands off of it to get them to do the right thing. They had to be called out in public and shamed, but at least they were capable of it, and they reversed themselves. But anybody that isn't loyal to Donald Trump is what James Comey testified to at the very beginning of the Trump administration. He will fire you and replace you with somebody who has no qualifications, who may even be serving illegally.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Meet Emily Murphy, a political hack, a traitor, appointed by Donald Trump to lead the General Services Administration, the GSA. What has Emily done? Rooftop sex parties. Emily was A-OK with alcohol ragers and rooftop sex parties at taxpayer expense at her government office. Swamp monster. Emily Murphy worked with Trump to prevent the FBI from moving its D.C. office space to help the Trump Hotel across the street. Oh! She tried covering it up to Congress.
Was the president or anyone at the White House involved in those discussions?
Sir, to my knowledge, the direction that we got came from the FBI.
We now know, in fact, that the president ordered this decision, which has the effect of benefiting his hotel and his own financial bottom line.
Sedition. And now Emily Murphy created chaos by unlawfully refusing to sign paperwork to permit a smooth transition to President-elect Biden, placing our lives at risk.
What do you see as the biggest threat to your transition right now, given President Trump's unprecedented attempt to obstruct and delay a smooth transfer of power?
More people may die.
Emily Murphy is a national disgrace. Tell Emily Murphy to sign the transition papers now. Midas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Sign the papers now, Emily. Sign the papers. 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 Sign them. Can you believe that a hack at the GSA who literally lied to Congress about the FBI building, Trump doesn't want the FBI building moved because if it moves to the far-flung area of Virginia, it would hurt his business at his hotel. The sex parties. Did you hear the reference to that really did happen. There was a former deputy at GSA who was, he had alcohol in his office. He had some women in his office. They went up to the rooftop. They would have, alcohol ragers. Apparently he liked oral sex on the rooftop is what he did. And she knew all about it. So sign the papers, Emily. It's just so interesting how the majority of America is good and decent and fair and wise, and one miscreant, one loser liar, one sycophant can cause so much death because she will not ascertain that Biden is entitled to these briefings on where the supplies are. Wow. Rich in Denver.
Hey, my queen.
Hey, my supplicant. Thank you.
Your awesome show as always. You're fantastic. I love you. I was Randy. I was positing the question to Brett and this Emily Murphy. Could somebody put a bee in her bonnet that, you better put pen to paper and sign the papers, or you're going to be facing some jail time and some you'll get hauled up on prosecution if you don't. Of course, if she reverses course and then signs the papers, idiot boy will fire her and put somebody else.
Of course, he'll fire her.
But is there legal? Would you think there would be, just to like put it in the back of her head that basically, my career is already in the toilet. It's crashing and burning. No one's ever going to hire me again, and now I could face jail time or prosecution. I mean, is that? Because I'll bet you my life on this, Randy. Like you said, he'll burn all the medical stuff, all the PPE going out the door. He will burn it literally. I guarantee you, he will destroy all of the PPE just as a thumb in the eye of every single decent and good American and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I wouldn't put anything past this effing guy.
Well, see, that's the thing. I wouldn't either. I really wouldn't either. And when he was talking about, like, last Thursday, can I bomb Iran? Can I bomb Iran?
Right.
You know what I mean? He wants to set fire to the world. There's no question. And the only thing that we got going for us are some people inside who have to execute on these things will say no. Unfortunately, Emily Murphy is not one of them. And I told you, they put this guy who came from the White House counsel's office, they moved him over to GSA. He is giving her the legal advice not to...
The lawyer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So we're being held hostage and the country is getting sicker. New York City schools just closed because positivity rates are over 3% there. You got Oregon having to shut down. You've got Wisconsin, Michigan. The whole Midwest is eaten up with COVID. Nurses,
here in Colorado,
doctors.
we're in the red.
Yeah. So, all this is going on. And the president is MIA, won't talk to anybody, won't give anybody, won't do anything to transition smoothly, won't do anything except continually bring lawsuits. That's what that's all he's focused on. And his lawyers, his Giuliani's and his Laxalts and his guy over at GSA, they're all impediments to America. I mean, they're the most anti-democratic people that could possibly ever come down the pike. They are servants of a man and not a constitution. They don't believe in America. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in the people's right to live. Like I said, don't ever tell me that party is the Right to Life party. Really, don't ever. Just spare me, because I'll ever say, you ever bring this up to me again, and I'm going to say two things to you. I'm going to say COVID, and I'm having an abortion right freaking now. Deal with it. Right. Mary in Michigan.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
Hey, how's Michigan?
Oh, it's really beautiful today, actually. We're doing better than 28 in the morning. Listen, hon, I wanted to ask you, how can Trump even think of running for president as an impeached person? Do you know legally? You who?
Yes, he can run, but first of all, he's the first impeached president ever to lose a second term or to run for president. Think about it. You just answered your own question, right? He ran for president for a second time as an impeached president. So,
oh my gosh, yes, you're right.
See? But here's the thing. If he's in jail in that type of government housing, he will not be able to run for president. Now, the reason why they're all kowtowing to him right now is because he's not going to be in jail immediately. And they got an election in Georgia that's going to determine whether or not Mitch is a minority leader, which he ought to be, and whether or not Lindsey is just another member on the Judiciary Committee, or if he's the chairman. And that's the game they're playing.
Ah, thank you. That really clarifies things.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. It's going to take, look, the stuff that's going on in New York, the criminal stuff, that's happening at Cyrus Vance's office. I got questions, okay, about the effectiveness of Cyrus Vance. Just saying. I got like two words, Harvey Weinstein. You know what I mean? Look it up. And then Letitia James, those are civil suits. Those are monetary fines. So it's going to take a while.
Call in, connect. It's Speak to Randy. Call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Months before we all knew how dangerous COVID would be, Georgia Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler got a secret briefing on it. But instead of helping Georgia prepare, the millionaire Republicans made themselves even richer. On the same day of the Senate briefing, Perdue bought stock in a personal protective equipment company. Loeffler sold millions of dollars in stock the same day of the briefing, then bought stock in a company that makes work-from-home software.
Financial disclosure forms show that Loeffler sold up to $3.1 million in stock over 3 weeks after being privately briefed in the Senate on coronavirus.
Records show that Perdue did purchase stock in Pfizer, a pharmaceutical company now developing a coronavirus vaccine.
Perdue, who is worth almost $16 million, and Loeffler, who has more than $500 million, were playing the stock market on inside information instead of helping Georgians. They shouldn't be in the Senate. They should be in prison. Vote them out on January 5th.
Yeah, do that. And it's all about Georgia. That's what all of this is about. They want Donald Trump to go down to Georgia. The devil goes down to Georgia. He was looking for votes to steal. He was in a bind because he's way behind, but he's willing to make a deal. See, that's what's going on in Georgia. It's honestly what's going on in Georgia. They think that Donald Trump can make the difference in the election of Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, who were insider trading when they were first briefed on COVID. They didn't tell the American people what they learned in that briefing about COVID. They didn't tell Georgians what they learned in that briefing about COVID. What did they do? They called their brokers. That's what they did. They went and they made money on the vaccine. They made money on short selling. They made money buying into, personal protection companies, equipment companies. So we got to Warnock our ass offs here for Georgia. Because once that's in the tank, once that's in the bag, once that's done, once that's over, and it won't be over until January 6th, and then, you got to remember, we'll probably go through the same thing with the challenges and the recounts and the da-da-da-da-da. And all these poll workers who are putting their lives on the line right now, working 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts to count ballots in Georgia. They will be denigrated. They will be insulted. They will have their credibility questioned by the likes of these losers. See, these insider traders, which is what they are, Perdue and Loeffler. I mean, these are the richest people in the Senate. Kelly Loeffler is the richest person in the Senate. She's worth $500 million. Her husband owns the New York Stock Exchange. She obviously was insider trading, and so was Perdue. And they're running against guys like Warnock, who's a reverend at the Ebenezer Baptist Church. They're running against guys like John Ossoff, who's a journalist. That's what John Ossoff's trade is. He's a journalist. These are decent people who care a great deal about Georgia. They care a great deal about their neighbors. They care a great deal about democracy. But the Lindsey Grahams and the Mitch McConnells, whether they become minority members of the Senate and lose their chairmanships, lose their leadership jobs, lose their big office. Mitch McConnell, the leader, gets the big office. I mean, the stuff that goes on in Washington, I've told you, I've seen it all. The idea that there were sex parties at the top of the General Services Administration building, that there were alcohol, rage parties, and that women were, doing oral on, various heads of the heads. Yeah, I said that. But honestly, that to me is not, it's not a like, oh, wow, really? No, I've seen it all. This place is debauchery. It is. And everyone blackmails everyone else, and everyone's got cards to play on everyone else's deals. It is so disgustingly swampy. And that's why when you say drain the swamp, people cheer because they know it. But Donald Trump sold them a lie. Donald Trump is the swamp. That's why Donald Trump is still challenging an election, that there was zero evidence of fraud, that there was zero evidence of anything untoward. It was free, it was fair, it was counted, it's being recounted, it's by hand, there's paper ballots, signatures to compare. He would rather sacrifice the entire country, our security, our health, our safety, our democracy itself, our ability to disagree and still be agreeable. doesn't matter to him. He is the swampiest of the swamp creatures. He is the worst of the worst. He is the worst president we have ever had. Ever. And he needs to be held accountable. So like I said when we were going to the break, okay, it doesn't happen overnight, all right? Maybe Cyrus Vance has been working on these criminal cases, you know, for so long. He's got a nice head start, right? That there could be an indictment of Donald Trump early on, but it's not going to end up in court. You know, you got, you know, your indictment, then you got your arraignment, then your plea, then you got discovery, you know, evidence, then you got to see the jury, then you got to, you know, it's 2 years. And that's what Mitch McConnell knows. And that's what Lindsey Graham knows. He's still, Donald Trump and his voters are still useful to them. That's the game they're playing with you. Still useful to them because of this Georgia double runoff situation. We have 48 senators on the Democratic side, 50 on the Republican side. We need 2 more. And Warnock and Ossoff are worthy. They know it. And so they are going to have to use these rallies, this propaganda, this bullcrap, COVID denial, everything. They're going to throw it all at Georgia. And I feel bad, but because you don't have any rural health care in Georgia. You know, I mean, this is what's so interesting. Raphael Warnock understands Georgia and the issues that Georgians face, okay?
Listen, this is a Georgia race, and I'm Georgia. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. My church is in Atlanta. I'm pastor of the spiritual home of Martin Luther King Jr. I grew up in public housing. One of 12 children in my family. I'm number 11 and the first graduate of a 4-year college in my family. I know personally the importance of good federal policy combined with personal responsibility, work, grit, and determination. That's the reason I'm able to run for the United States Senate. I am an iteration of the American dream, and I'm running for the Senate because that promise is slipping away from far too many people. That's what this race is about.
And Kelly Loeffler was appointed by the governor, by Kemp, and she just happened to be the richest woman in Georgia, and that's how she's in the Senate. So, you know, compare and contrast. Now, the Republicans know this. They know that Warnock is an awesome candidate. They know that Georgians know his character. And that's why it goes right back to what I was saying about democracy is an experiment. And it really hinges on the character of the people that we put into these positions of head of the GSA even, right? These granular positions that we don't think about. Okay, it's important who's there. It's important the character, the integrity of the person who's serving in the Senate, who's the majority leader. You know, we got all these people that, you know, their unemployment is going to, we have almost 12 million people unemployed, still getting unemployment. It runs out in the middle of the dark winter, this dark winter that we're all facing. Okay, their unemployment runs out like the day after Christmas. And you have a majority leader that won't even meet with the majority leader of the House to get a bill done. He won't even talk to her. You have a president who won't come out of the bunker. In the middle of all of this death and all of this sickness and all of this infection and the spread of infection and the shutting down of business, no stimulus package, no relief for the people so that we can do what we need to do to get to the point where we can get vaccinated. It matters who's in charge. I'm telling you it matters. John Ossoff, you know, listen, he understands the situation in Georgia too.
Hey y'all, this is John Ossoff, day 4 of our Future of Georgia tour. We just left Augusta, we're just arriving in Athens. I want to talk for a second about rural health care in Georgia because just north of here in Commerce, we've just lost the Northridge Medical Center. This is the 9th rural hospital to close in Georgia in 10 years. Half of our counties in this state already have no OBGYN physician. There's a shortage of rural health care access in Georgia. It's a problem that we can solve, but only by investing in building new rural hospitals, building new health clinics, expanding Medicaid. And that's what I'll do in the U.S. Senate.
Do you think Kelly Loeffler gives a rat's ass about rural health care in Georgia? You think David Perdue does? I'll tell you how I know he doesn't. He refuses to debate Jon Ossoff again because Jon Ossoff handed him his Ossoff. Called him out, said he was a criminal, said he didn't care, keeps voting to get rid of the ACA and the pre-existing conditions protection, right? That's why Donald Trump is useful to Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham. That's why Lindsey Graham is inserting himself into Georgia's election. Just be real clear about what's going on here.